Welcome to MMO Grinder Backtrack, where I take a look at games I've reviewed previously to check out what's new. Today in November of 2013, I'll be revisiting Smite, a 3D perspective MOBA title based around warring gods that I reviewed in episode 39. While the game's still technically not out of open beta, the amount of changes and additions that have come about are definitely worth another look, as not all of them are obvious graphical updates or just new character additions. So, naturally, let's just start off with that. Footage of my old Smite video will seem very outdated, as every map in the game has undergone some sort of graphical revision, while retaining some of its general layout. First up, Conquest, which, in addition to the graphical upgrade, has received a revamp to the jungle as well, placing similar camps for players looking to just gain experience, as well as a larger overall area. Jungle buffs are also revamped. Unlike before, you can only hold one at a time. Instead of the last hit granting you the buff immediately, this time, once the enemy is killed, it'll drop an orb that anyone can pick up to gain the buff. This is useful for those who want to run to the jungle first and don't want to accidentally steal a buff from their allies if they're helping them get these buffs. As normal to Smite, killing a player with a buff will only remove that buff and it won't grant it to the other players or drop it again. In addition to the graphical overhaul of Conquest, the Joust and Arena maps also sport a new look, and even have undergone several revisions since the review. Joust is also available to teams of 3 in addition to the original 1v1 mode. A new Norse Theme map was revealed called Assault, which is similar to LoL's Proving Ground map, an ARAM or all-random all-middle map with one lane, 2 ally and 2 enemy towers, a phoenix and a minotaur. Like League's ARAM, you cannot return to your base to purchase items or heal until you have died. Assault matches also have an insanely long death respawn, making the matches kind of very push and pull. Since you can't really choose your god, it's not an overly competitive mode, offering little room for pre-game strategy and being a decent mode for newcomers who are still unfamiliar with the game but want a more casual match that's similar to Conquest mode. Even the Assault map underwent a recent revision to its original design. The tutorial also gets a revamp graphically, in structure, as well as changing the tutorial god from Ra to Neith. In matches in general, those bummed that you couldn't jump with spacebar can now jump. Ineffectually, but you can jump. Consequently, the mouse mode is now brought up by holding down Alt. As expected, there have been a ton of new gods added, making the Ultimate God Pack ever more of a bargain. In what seems like an oddity, there was a sudden massive influx of Greek gods, Mayan gods, and Chinese gods, the latter possibly being the result of a deal made between hi-rez and Chinese publisher Tencent. And the former, and this is me purely speculating here, because of the endless controversy that was garnered every time a Hindu god appeared in the game. And knowing that there were a few in the works, and there still haven't been any that have appeared since Bakasura, I can't help but feel that some of those ideas were just retooled into other gods. Speaking of retooling, the Chinese publisher deal brought about the announcement of a rework of Guan Yu and Sun Wukong. Guan Yu was changed in appearance and reworked to be a more physical fighter, losing his magical blade and musical abilities, but gaining much more effective attacks, a different passive, and a more interesting ultimate where he mounts up on horseback. Sun Wukong was initially removed, and the god we knew as Sun Wukong was reworked into the Mayan god Hunbats, with only a few tweaks to his playstyle, such as the final hit of his first move teleporting Hunbats to the opponent, and the ultimate forced players to walk away from the center, marked by a totem, instead of just wandering around randomly. Sun Wukong returned recently in a manner more aligned with his legend, making use of his extendable staff, beast transformations, and cloud riding abilities. Gods receiving more simple reskins were Ra and Odin, with Ra taking on a more bird-like look and Odin getting a less cartoony look overall. The most recent god that was reskinned and received a slight rework was the long overdue Hel, who now visibly switches between 2 models in light and dark mode, and who gains a passive that better balances the amount of damage and healing that she can do when swapping forms. Those who've already bought every skin and god in the game finally have another use for gems with the addition of voice packs, which will switch the default announcer that plays when using the VGS system with the voice of the god that they're currently playing as. Not every god has received a voice pack yet, but every new god that gets released does have one included. I guess they're still getting around to some of the older ones. A few hi-rez themed skins have been added for players of hi-rez's other games. If you're a high level in Tribes Ascend, you can gain the Thor Blood Eagle skin for free. And if you're high level in Global Agenda, you can get the Sentry skin for Vulcan. Both of these are available just to purchase if you're not in either of these games, however. There are skins not immediately available to you to purchase no matter what you do, in the form of the golden skins. Both skins are unlocked through play with that particular god. After a match you'll gain worshippers and gather enough of them and you'll advance in total mastery level as well as the level of that god. Gods that have reached level 1 can purchase the gold and blue versions, and if a god reaches level 10 they can purchase the gold and black version. These act more as status symbols more than anything, and you'll gain a stat card over your god in the loading menu if you reach at least level 1 with one of them. Finally, items have gotten some slight reworks, and while the 3-tier item system is still in effect, many items, including boots and others, have 2 options at the 3rd tier that can have slight stat variances. For example, Gem of Isolation can also become a Gem of Binding, which will cast a slow anytime you use a basic attack, instead of Gem of Isolation's original slow that added only to abilities. It's useful for magic types that will get more use out of their basic attack, or those that have abilities that will affect their basic attacks. Smite remains my favorite MOBA, even if I'd still rather not deal with the headache of obnoxious metagaming players in Conquest mode. I still hear this community is usually the most comparably friendly of all the MOBA communities, and that statement seriously worries the hell out of me. I'll be sure to check back with this game and others in more episodes of MMO Grinder Backtrack. Oh yeah, Freya's still the only god I'm halfway decent with, the players are still all too eager to quit their matches when they don't get what they want, and hi-rez can't reveal a new god on YouTube without some dingbat ranting about how the character was stolen from League of Legends. Some things never change.